I'm Danielle Smith. I'll be honest with you. I have always believed with my children that sharing with them what was going on in the world was an okay thing to do. Now, right now they're 6 and they're 8, so we're not talking about me talking about world events with them when they were 2. But if the news was on and they had a question about something, I'm a former journalist, so watching the news was always kind of a regular thing for both my husband and I. And so if they happened to have questions, I always would explain to them what they were seeing. We talked about the earthquakes in Haiti. We experienced tornadoes here in the Midwest. Natural disasters. I would tell them what was happening in the world. But with this weekend's past events in Aurora, Colorado, with this, and I'm going to call it a massacre because to me there is no, it sounds like an extreme word, admittedly, but that's what I believe this man did. I mean, he chose to go in and literally just gun people down. And it was just a mass killing, and it was horrific. And the movies have always been a very safe, fun, family, just a good place to go. And I don't want to tell my kids about it. I don't want them to be afraid of the movies. I don't want them to think that this is something that can happen to them. I was watching on the news last night and they were talking about how to have a conversation with your children about this if they do happen to catch a glimpse of it. And, the number one thing is only answer the questions they ask, because maybe they've only heard just a small snippet of it, and maybe they don't know enough to ask a lot of questions and to be very afraid. So if you give them a lot more information, you're going to feed into a fear that maybe didn't exist before. And that makes perfect sense to me. At this point, we've managed to shield them entirely. And even in church the other day, our priest said we'd like to say prayers for all the families and the killings in Colorado. And for some reason, it went right over my kids' heads. They didn't hear, they didn't ask. And I'm okay with that at this point. But one of the other things was to talk about the movies being a safe place. And if you have to, do the math with them. Talk about the fact that this kind of thing never happens. How many movie theaters are there in your city, in your state, in each state, in the country, and how many times has this ever happened? Once. To actually do the math with them, which I think is a wonderful tactic if in fact you have to have this conversation with your children. But the number of times that I've talked to my kids are deathly afraid of tornadoes, having had the experience here in the Midwest and with us being so close to Joplin and the experience there. And they're, St. Louis and the airport, and, my kids were very afraid after seeing the images. That's the kind of fear that I feel as though I can contain and I can help them work through. But this is such an irrational thing that I can't even begin to wrap my brain around it. It's so horrific. It's horrific for me as an adult. I don't have any intention of introducing this kind of thing to my children. Did you talk to your kids about this? And if you decided to broach the subject, if it wasn't something that your children heard about and then you answered the questions, if you decided to actually go to your children and explain it to them, and they are of a younger age, 8, 10, 12, why did you decide to talk to them about it? And if they did come to you having heard a little bit about it, how did you handle it? I'd love to know. Answer in the comments, and also, of course, don't forget to subscribe.